Would you watch a show where a billionaire CEO has to go an entire month on their lowest paid employee's salary, without access to any other resources than that of the employee? What do you think would happen? They'd be fine. The problem with poverty is not usually day-to-day costs. People can adjust to that. It is unexpected expenses that are crippling. It would be better if they had to live with their lowest salaried employee for a month or two, IMO. In their house, dinner with the family, travel to and from work together, same lunch, kids with homework, the works. Building that relation would IMO do much more for this problem than just experiencing below your normal standard of living before returning to it. It would be incredibly selfing and boring. They would never truly experience what it is like to be in the precarious position of a minimum wage employee living hand to mouth, and the novelty is just salt in the wound. It would be more interesting to see the reverse. There was this similar themed show in Hong Kong and mainland China years ago. They swapped billionaire with bottom feeders, let the rich do the basic job, on the lowest salary, to see how far the rich could go by purely their own effort. Nearly all of the billionaire admitted that they could not make anywhere, regardless of how hard they work. Even working without sleeping and resting could not give you any accumulation to help climb up to the higher level of the society. There was only despair, an admission that the divide between the poor and the rich is already a deep valley, and mere personal effort makes little sense. It stirred big debate among the society back then, and I think that was part of the reasons the show got cancelled. I love reality shows, so I'd watch it depending on who produces it. Lots of rich people voluntarily go on vacation to third world countries. The catch is, they know they have a way out and an end date. I'd be interested to watch a show where the CEO had to personally be financially responsible for the welfare of 50% of their lowest paid employees for 10 years, and their net growth percentage equaled their bonus every year, with a big bonus if both the company and the employees were profitable at the end. Sure, they would never do that though, because then they would have to admit that they don't pay a living wage. Nah, all they have to do is stick it out for a month, and then they can say from personal experience that it isn't that bad. Of course, they never have to deal with the effects in the long term. I'd do more than a month, and without any contact to rich buddies either. They wouldn't have any trouble. Most of them are self-made, and most have a large number of financial skills that 99% of people don't. You should watch Undercover Billionaire on Discovery, not to be confused with Undercover Boss. Billionaire Glenn Stearns moves to Erie with just $100, a truck, and no contacts, and has to make a company valued at $1 million in 90 days. He also can't mention who he is to anyone. It is pretty much exactly like you are describing, and insanely entertaining. No. Slumming is not living your entire life in a slum. Here is what will happen: fake billionaires like Trump will come to this show. They would just treat it as a novelty, since they know they will be getting their billions back at the end of the month. They wouldn't have to truly live like a person does who lives hand to mouth every day of their lives. They would have to swap everything down to the last detail. Apartment, car if they even have one, wardrobe, food, hobbies, etc. And it would have to be ongoing, not just a couple months. Which legendary Reddit post/comment can you still not get over? There was a post on r/a of a gorilla using sign language to tell people not to feed it, or something to that effect. To this day, I still laugh when I think about a comment that said, "It's a shame there's so many deaf gorillas." How useful, and sadly how often I share this advice on insurance after a fire. https://www. Not a single post, but a series by making up bogus facts relevant to any particular thread and ending with, "Since 1998, when Undertaker threw mankind off hell in a cell and plummeted 16 feet through an announcer's table. He always spells out 1998. This one guy was on the toilet, and he sneezed while he was taking a shit. That same moment, the power in his house went out. He proceeded to cry because he thought he shit himself blind." Maybe someone can help me find the actual post. It was from 5 years ago on a post about what you would do with a specific amount of money, like $5 million in a lottery. Someone replied with, "Is that enough to rent an orange cat for 2 years?" And it was so far out of left field and hilarious to me that I haven't stopped thinking about it. Is that enough to rent an orange cat for 2 years? https://www. That time a person on r/Formula 1 asked * if you could eliminate a race within the year, which would it be, and why? *, which looked rather bad when taken out of context, especially in r/all. Wow, didn't expect to see r/Formula 1 here, and I've been here for over 10 hours. Someone ran r/homeowners trying to get rid of ants in their house. Tons of comments. One fellow Redditor suggested maybe there were no ants, that they were hallucinations due to carbon monoxide poisoning. OP had his house tested, and turns out there were, in fact, no ants, and he was hallucinating them due to carbon monoxide poisoning. Today I learned carbon monoxide can make you see ants. I can't remember everything about the post or even which sub it was in, but I think about this one a lot. OP was staying in a hotel, and the person in the room next to them was blasting Sesame Street. They suddenly heard a grown man yell, "God damn it, Mr. Noodle. Every account on Reddit is a bot except you." What the hell was going on there, lol? I'm a bit scared after reading that. Believe I saw it on Reddit, a IT tech related post. Guy starts a new job as a system admin, no other IT at the place. Previous admin had been there for just about fucking forever and left behind some documentation, but not enough to make the job easy. The guy finds a note from the previous tech with a few miscellaneous tips, and then says if there is a critical emergency and everything else has failed, there is a box in the server room behind the switch, open only as a last resort. Guy is there for a few years, metaphorical fires get fixed, he learns the tricks of the place, but one day the server doesn't boot, tries everything, can't get it to work, all the files are there, the company can't function, actual fires are about to start. Guy freaks out and remembers the emergency box and figures now should be an emergency and figures maybe the guy left access info to off-site backups or tape drives or some sort of disaster recovery and goes into the server room. Behind the switch is a box, pulls it out and opens it to find a bottle of tequila. I need the link to this one. This is amazing. Reminds me of an old story. The former president gives the new president 3 boxes and asks him to open one each time he is in a major crisis. When faced with his first crisis, he opens the first box and it says blame it on the previous administration. When faced with his second crisis, he opens the second box and it says blame it on the opposition. When faced with his third crisis at almost the end of his term, he opens the third box and it says remake these 3 boxes and give them to your successor. This comment from Arnold Schwarzenegger lifting up a guy who had a terrible day at the gym. I still love the r/shower thoughts post. Going waterboarding in Guantanamo Bay sounds like a great time if you don't know what either of those things are. I love this. Holy shit, that's an actual good shower thought. I can't find the post, but it was a man whose son was born evil. They knew it right away, born in the 70s, I believe. When the son was older, he tried to kill his baby sister or something. And the mom started to beat him up. The dad left the room and waited until she stopped. She came out 20 minutes later and he said, "Is he dead?" She said, "My God, I hope so." They locked themselves downstairs for 2 weeks, listening to him move around a little bit here and there. After 2 weeks he left and they never saw him again. Edit, found it. That was chilling. I worked 1 year with a student that sounds like that man's son. Random attacks out of nowhere. No smiles that weren't malicious. Graphic depictions of what he was going to do to me that went way beyond what a child like him should be able to envision. He was a first grader. Talked about the different ways his pets died, but looking nearly cheerful about it. I was injured several times that year. To this day I tense when I hear his name or anyone speak in the same distinctive sounding speech pattern he had. Think Hannibal Lecter with the ebbs and flows that are just a little jarring. I once ran into him at a grocery store and still won't go there. I'm afraid he is going to recognize my car even though I haven't seen him in 3 years. I was put on him because I was the only one who could keep him even a little bit in line, and that was only because I was willing to give him exactly 0 strikes. It was exhausting and I was seriously relieved when I got a different job. I've worked with kids who are a handful before. If you work with them close enough you usually figure out what triggering their behavior, problems at home, trying to fit in with a crowd, etc. Even if you didn't know, it usually became obvious when something was about to trigger them. You figured out Bobby clicks his tongue when he silent reads and Jake can't stand it and expressed his frustrations through slamming his hand on Bobby's desk and telling him to STFU. You make sure Bobby and Jake sit nowhere near each other and maybe invest in a white noise machine and you can work on figuring out that Jake's dad just left them. But not this kid. We could never find a trigger, a scenario outside school, nothing. We had experts come in to look at him and he'd suddenly be the most charming child on the planet, but before they made it to the parking lot he'd be trying to bite us. We begged his parents to try to take him to a therapist or a doctor, but they just kept trying to change his diet. If this kid grows into a serial killer I would not be shocked in the slightest. I occasionally Google his name just to see if anything had happened with him. Holy shit, that's the kind of story that makes you rethink your entire family dynamic and really your whole life. I forget the whole thing, but something along the lines of a guy had to go to a dinner with his wife's parents. Ate some edibles not realizing how strong they were. And he was sweating like a pig claiming how spicy the food was. Then his wife was like, "We've only had the appetizer, bread and water." I have no idea how to get the link, but it had me in tears the first time. Trust me, it's way funnier than I make it to be. The Ask Reddit where drug dealers talk about having to turn their customers into child protective services. I tried really hard to find the original post but I couldn't find it anymore. End number X200B, it was a post in r/Amith asshole where an Uber driver drove a girl to a restaurant where she was meeting her boyfriend. Before he dropped her off he gave her a respectful comment, nothing inappropriate and without any bad intentions. He was asking if he was the asshole and the answer was no. The best part happened in the comments section where somebody asked if he was living in a specific city. He replied a little freaked out with yes. Turn out it was the stranger cousin that he gave the compliment to. After he dropped her off at the restaurant, she went inside to meet her boyfriend. However, it wasn't a nice night because he broke up with her. She told her cousin that the compliment that her Uber driver gave her some comfort or made her happy or something like that. The girl and the Uber driver then contacted each other through the cousin. I don't know what happened afterwards, but if somebody knows this post, I will give you a virtual hug if you could link it. End number X200B, edit. Here is the link where you can read the original post because it was removed. Is it this one? The story of you/Jason in hell is one of the saddest stories that I have read on the internet. If you guys don't know the story, /JasonInHell was a fellow Reddit user that posted his story regarding his wife's cheating with his neighbor on r/relationship_advice. r/relationship_advice told him that he will be better off divorcing his wife than to deal with her. A few days later he posts something on r/legal advice to see how he can secure custody of his 2 children during the divorce. His wife, named Brandy Worley, found the r/legal advice thread. The same day she found the Reddit posts, she kills both kids to spite her soon-to-be ex-husband. Brandy then calls 911 telling the operator that she stabbed herself and her 2 children because her husband was divorcing her. The call was recorded with Brandy showing no remorse or emotion during the call. This whole situation was unfolding live on Reddit and 4cha, and Brandy was given 120 years in prison with the jury saying she doesn't regret her decision not one bit. Link for the 911 call. This video explains the whole situation in great detail. Holy shit, that was much worse than I expected. Deleted. This one 4yo kid in a NSFW post when asked what he was doing there, and he replied, "I don't go to work." I mean, they're not wrong. That one Redditer that spent his entire grandmother's inheritance on a Twitch streamer, thinking they were going to get married. And number X200B, edit, I am providing the link since so many people are interested. Full disclaimer, I had to close my laptop from cringing so hard the first time I read it. You've been warned. PSA, the first comment is the transcription. Scroll down instead of trying to read the blurry image. There is cringe and then there is, this, fuck. And there at the end I thought he was wrapping up with a lesson learned on how to interact/read PPL. I want to go 5 minutes back in time and make a better choice about clicking this link. Holy shit. I thought he had learned that his behavior was creepy, but then just doubled down. Sad cringe, indeed.
Like and subscribe for more Reddit content. Watch the next video at the top of your screen.